Lake Erie was the first place Great Lakes Now took you when we launched as a television program in 2019. And it's big fun for us to be talking about this Great Lake tonight during this co-hosted Facebook watch party with Western Reserve Public Media and Great Lakes Outreach Media. Welcome. I'm Sandra Swoboda, the program director for Great Lakes Now, and I'm joined here by David Ruck from Great Lakes Outreach Media. If you're a regular viewer of Great Lakes Now, you've seen his work on our program. And he's in full production on a full-length documentary about Lake Erie, and we're going to hear more about that in a minute. David, welcome to Great Lakes Now.
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
Our plan here is to show you all tonight a bit more about farming and agriculture and how it is impacting the Great Lakes watershed, and talk a little bit more about Lake Erie. So why just one Great Lake when Great Lakes Now is, as you know, about all of the Great Lakes in the region and all of the states and the two countries? Well, tonight, it's all about Lake Erie and Northern Ohio, because we are celebrating that Western Reserve Public Media, that's the PBS station in Northeast Ohio, is moving Great Lakes Now to a regular time slot on Mondays at 10:30 p.m. So you can turn into Western Reserve Public Media tonight if you're watching us on Facebook Live, and going forward every last Monday of the month, and catch a new show on that PBS station in Northeast Ohio. Of course, you can always find the latest news about Great Lakes Now at our website, greatlakesnow.org. And you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and see all of our stories and work about the science, the environmental issues, the recreation, the history, the culture, and the industries of our Great Lakes. If you have questions, put them in Facebook tonight. They're in the chat box below the viewing, and we will answer them after we watch the segment that David produced. So David Ruck, let me get to you and let's have you talk about your work. Why Lake Erie? Why so much focus from you on Lake Erie in your production?
Sure. Thanks, Sandy. Well, you know, all the Great Lakes are unique, as you know, from Superior, Michigan, Ontario, Erie. What am I missing? Huron, Superior. Anyway.
You got to do the Holmes acronym.
Yeah. Well, Lake Erie is unique in a lot of ways because of its depth, because of the water running into it, and it's dealing with some challenges. So, yeah.
We're going to talk about some of those challenges and see more about those in the segment. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other segments that you've done for Great Lakes Now about Lake Erie. There was one that was part of our April show. It was called From Rust to Resilience, and it was about climate change in Great Lakes cities. And we saw some of your work in that about how harmful algal blooms are related to climate change. Can you tell us more about that segment?
Yeah, well, you can see behind me, this is a Lake Erie algal bloom. And there's a lot of drivers for algal blooms, mainly nutrient loading coming through the Maumee and other water bodies that lead into Lake Erie. But sort of the X factor out there and a focus of study is a changing climate. Heat, whether that's warmer air, warmer weather, drier weather, leading to a warmer Lake Erie. Warmer water tends to fuel blooms. So if you've got the other conditions that exist already, and you're making it warmer, you're going to be probably making Lake Erie have either earlier blooms or longer lasting blooms. They're still trying to figure this all out, but certainly climate change is an issue that is going to be driving these blooms in the future.
Why should audiences, I mean, of course, all around the Great Lakes, but specifically, in Northern Ohio there, we're hosted tonight by Western Reserve Public Media. What are some of the specific things you're hearing from people in Northern Ohio about some of these issues with Lake Erie? What are they interested in knowing about?
Well, of course, there's always the concern of human health. There's the concern of, will this drive away recreation, tourism dollars? As well as economic dollars from any people that rely on fishing for sustenance, or to make a living, or bringing people out on the lake for a living. But certainly, one of the stories that tends to get a lot of attention is, can this hurt my pet who's drinking the water? So there's a lot of issues and a lot of angles that you can take when you look at what's happening to Lake Erie. One of them being, another one being, should this lake have rights? And unfortunately, as it is right now, Ohio has determined Lake Erie doesn't have rights. So it depends on who you ask, but there's certainly, it's as varied as the people that you will talk to is the way that people are experiencing this problem.
So I am going to answer that question that you raised about, is it safe for pets? And the answer is, with the algal blooms, no. I mean, places that those aren't in full toxicity, probably okay, but there have been cases where pets were poisoned and even died from it. I remember a Michigan radio story by Lester Graham, who I've worked with in previous lives, about that. And then also the issue that you raised, the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, that was something that Toledo voters voted on. And we covered that extensively on Great Lakes Now, I believe, a year ago. And whether, sort of the same rights of people or corporations could be extended to a body of water. That's something that's been going on in the environmental community around the country and really around the world, trying to answer that question. David, I could talk for a while about where Great Lakes Now has been in Lake Erie. We've gone to South Bass Island and visited the Put-in-Bay sailing team there. In fact, that was our very first segment and the very first episode of the show. We have a picture there of our host Ward Detweiler and the airplane flying between South Bass and Kelly's Island. So we kind of dug into life, culture. Look, that's Ward's first introduction that he did for the show. Ugh, memories. We've kind of dug into the culture, and we've had some stories on our website about what life on the islands is like during pandemic. We also looked at island basketball, which was a segment about the schools, 4 island schools around the region that play basketball tournaments. And we traveled up the Cuyahoga River 50 years after the infamous fire to see the restoration efforts there. So really been a blend of work on shore, but your work is focused out on the water. Take us out there and tell us what you filmed when you're out in the boats, and then we'll talk about what you do on shore in this next segment.
Well, for this project specifically, and this segment that you're going to see is a small slice of the work that we did in 2019. This project started largely because of my relationship with the scientific community, and so I was out on the water frequently with scientists who are studying the bloom, studying the toxicity of the bloom. Whether that's creating models that are predictive of what the bloom might do, or scientists that are putting in place monitoring systems that let resource managers like water municipalities understand, like, hey, do we need to get ready to treat the water because it's going to get toxic? So that pretty much, like, this is 2019. We were out on the water filming all aspects of this challenging problem from the water, and then moving further inland, which is what this particular episode you're going to see tonight really focuses on.
Okay, well, the segment is called Feeding the Blooms. We're going to visit some farms. David, any last words before our viewers watch this about what they should look for in particular?
What do you think you can do about this problem?
Okay. All right, with that, let's watch Feeding the Blooms.
You probably know that toxic